Well, let's bring in the Maakaron magic. John Maakaron covers the Lions for Sports Illustrated. Go check out. Me and Doc chopped it up for 30+ minutes on Lions. It's all Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. He's crushing it. He's got his own YouTube channel and everything. We had some good conversations. We're going to have more conversations today with the Doc because he joins us every single Wednesday, 8:45. It's the best segment in sports, in my opinion. So let's bring him on, Mr. John Maakaron. How we doing, John?
Fellas, how we doing? It's a good Wednesday. All is good, man. What's going on?
Well, Doc, it seems like it's the season of all the visits. They're bringing in prospects. They're bringing in free agents. I guess I'll start with the free agent because it's fresh, DeMarcus Walker. And it's not more so about the player, but is it safe to assume, Doc, that they're kind of fielding options just in case this Zadarius Smith thing doesn't work out necessarily, not putting all your eggs in one basket?
Yeah, absolutely. Chat, what's up? What's going on? Hope everybody's well. It's fucking cold in Michigan. My God, I want to go back to Florida, and it makes you want to cuss. My goodness, 30 degrees. I mean, here's the crappy part. I had tickets to go to Monday's game against the Yankees, good seats provided by the company. I couldn't even go. It was so cold. Couldn't even take my nephew to get out there, but my goodness. But let's fire it up with Lions chat. Look, Brad Holmes said that they're still trying to evaluate all of the needs out there in free agency, and edge rusher is clearly one of them. They're trying everybody. And look, there's a player that's decent, but I don't think that he's even on Marcus Davenport's level. He had a good year a couple years ago, but just reading the tea leaves, visited with the Giants. I think the Giants might have an inroads because their defensive coordinator was on the coaching staff when he was a couple years ago, I believe, with the Titans, had his best year. But I look at it from the perspective of the Lions. They're going to try and really research as many defensive linemen as humanly possible to get out there and try to complement Marcus Davenport and Aiden Hutchinson. So, but really in the end, right now, as we speak, the biggest, unfortunately the starting, on the depth chart is Marcus Davenport. And then closely, we expect most likely will be in the draft, the player they select, hopefully in the first round. But, I look at it and this would be the definition of a role player if they were to bring him on. But I don't think that that's a player that would definitely change the fortunes of the Lions defensive line.
Doc, can I ask you, I want to throw this out there too, because we had this conversation this week. And by the way, good to see it, Doc. It's been a week. Hope you've had an amazing week, opening day, all of that. Hope you enjoyed everything. But I want to go back to earlier in the week. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. We had a segment on our show. I cannot remember where we got it and who it was, but talking about how often that the Detroit Lions, when they have guys on top 30s or they meet with guys at the combine, those are typically guys that they draft in the first couple rounds. Is there on your in your end, is there anyone that stands out, or maybe even a few guys that stand out specifically that they have met with to where you're like, I think that that's going to happen and that's going to almost be a done deal because they, the fit and constantly meet with them? Is there anyone that stands out to you? I think we lost Doc.
I didn't know if my screen was frozen. My Wi-Fi bug was.
Oh no!
I asked the question and I was like, "Oh no, the Doc stone."
Look at him. I mean, he is just dialed into the question right now. Yeah, we'll get him back.
He got the Doc back. He's already here. He's in the waiting room.
Yeah, he look at. Oh, there he is.
Oh, he was there, but he just left again.
Are we back?
No,
look at that. The talk is so say one cuss word and the internet boots me out. Hopefully the internet connection is not terrible. But Booner, look, the internet gods don't want you to take another L in a debate with the Doc.
Oh,
there's no debate. This is a normal question, Doc. I'm not debating.
Going back to last week.
My New Year's resolution: don't debate anymore, Booner. That's what it is.
Oh no, that ain't gonna happen.
That is such a load of shit, Booner. That is you failed at that resolution probably on January 1st.
Doc, did you were you able to hear the question, or do you need me to repeat it?
No, I didn't hear the question. What's up?
The question was, we had the conversation about how most of the guys that they actually meet with on the top 30 visits and in the combine, you see a kind of a relation of them actually drafting those guys in the first 2 rounds. Are there any guys specifically to you that kind of stood out that you've seen them come in on visits, whether it's the combine or the top 30, that you think that guys like we should all keep our eye on, and that actually have a really good chance of happening?
Yeah, no, the visits are key. You look at how the Lions operate. You've seen Branch come in, Arnold. They do take a plethora of players that do come in. And here's why. The research that they do on these players is immense. And you see these opportunities that the Lions want to have. And that's why the strategy has been for the Lions to kind of really focus on the draft more than free agency, because of all the work the area scouts do, the scouts that talk to Brad Holmes. They want to have an opportunity to go up on the chalkboard and have a player. We did a story today. Matt Derry got a great interview with an Auburn linebacker, and he detailed what goes on. And basically, it's a position coach goes up there, draws up some scheme plays, and wants to know, hey, can you go out there and repeat and understand what it is that we're teaching you? How fast is your recall? How fast can you learn a concept that we're trying to accomplish? So the Lions want to do their due diligence. That's why those visits are important. Those top 30 are key, but they have made some draft picks in regards to the, who's been here with the Lions where they didn't come to visit. So it's one of those deals where the Lions kind of haven't, the way they've done it and the way they've explained it is they know who they like. And sometimes they want to bring in certain guys to kind of further enhance what they know about a player. But some guys, they just know based on the film, based on investigating with the coaches. If for instance, a coach is on the Lions and they know of a player and they have a relationship with the university, they can go get the information without having an official visit. So there's a lot of ways to evaluate, but the Lions have done a real good job clearly in regards to who they want to bring in, targeted players that they believe could help this football team. And I love their process because clearly the guys that they bring in are gritty. They are guys that can have high football IQ. And I think the biggest thing that the Lions look for in the guys that they want to bring in is, do they love the game of football? Are they passionate? Do they eat, sleep, breathe the game? And if they do, then they're willing to take on guys to help and bring on and develop. And they might not even be as talented maybe as some other guys, but that don't love the game. And that's what it's a reflection of Dan Campbell, because probably right now as we speak, definitely probably watching some film and looking at some tight ends that can block.
And Doc, kind of going hand in hand with that question, something that I saw that was very interesting. The Lions are reportedly showing interest in Maxwell Harrison, the cornerback out of Kentucky. And we've been in this offseason, we even talked to you about it, especially Ennis Rakestraw. And news came out about that. And I don't know if you guys saw, but like last night, Ennis Rakestraw kind of put out a cryptic tweet just saying, like, you're going to continue to doubt me. Have no clue if it relates to the Detroit Lions. But let's say the Lions do take a player like Maxwell Harrison because it falls into, well, we think he fits the Lions' philosophy, and it's BPA. Maybe he's sitting there early in the second round, they want to move up, or maybe they're sitting at 28 when that's their guy. What do you think that chances are that Harrison's drafted, let alone a corner in general, and how does that impact Rakestraw going into year 2?
Yeah, well, clearly, here's something that happened that unfortunately is a little bit tough for Ennis Rakestraw. All right, Brad Holmes comes out, and he's direct, but it can be taken in a way. Brad Holmes said in his talk with the media, look, we had to go out and get DJ Reed. It's not a reflection of Ennis Rakestraw, but he was hurt. We don't know what he brings to the table. And he said directly to the reporters, he was, not healthy enough for us to get an eval and for us to trust him moving forward. We had to go out and get a defensive back. So what Ennis is basically indicating is that people are questioning him. They felt like maybe first and foremost, he was undersized. And second of all, he was hurt last year coming into the draft. And then he suffered a bunch of injuries in training camp and was nicked up a little bit, still healing. The Lions took it easy with him. And then unfortunately, he didn't really make much of an impact. And you juxtapose that with the 2 defensive backs that the Eagles got, you get a little bit of a different view of a player. So I look at Ennis Rakestraw as he had a redshirt year. He learned a little bit on special teams. He got opportunities, but yeah, he's got to earn his keep. And he's a right now a question mark. And that's what Brad Holmes said, is that we still don't know. We have faith in him, and they always say that. But he said that we couldn't just, rely on Ennis Rakestraw and just not have evaluations on free agent cornerbacks. And I do believe they're going to probably take one in the draft. So he does have a lot to prove. He said in his season-ending conference, I got to get, my body right. I'm going to put in the work, and I got to come back and prove that I belong. And hopefully he can, because that would be a big bonus to play alongside DJ Reed, Terrion Arnold, and Amik Robertson. If you get anything out of Ennis Rakestraw, that's a bonus for Kelvin Shepard. But right now, he's a big question mark.
Yeah, Doc, we talked on the Lone Wolves podcast earlier about just kind of the wide receiver position and Jameson, and how Brad's quote was pretty telling based on the fifth-year option thing. And it's safe to assume everyone believes in J-Mo. Okay, everyone thinks he's an incredible player. But with that being said, the contract's going to be pretty massive, given he's very talented. The market's going up, and trying to re-sign a guy like that, along with Amon-Ra, Panay, having a $50+ million quarterback, it's going to be hard. And then you have Laporta coming up. Now, if it is cheaper, maybe they can get it done. But assuming he's going to want max money, as he should, how do you think the Lions address that? I know it's in 2 years, but do you think it should be something they push to next year, and maybe this year you replace just Tim Patrick? Or how do you think the Lions, in your opinion, will kind of prioritize finding wide receiver talent in terms of how high in the draft, maybe, whatever you think?
Yeah. I look at it like Jameson, it's a unique dilemma, right? If he has a big season this year, then his price goes up, and the market is crazy, and the cap is going up, relatively high. It's going up about 20 million, 30 million a year, but you may allocate those funds for guys like Brian Branch and Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs down the road. And you could argue that wide receiver is the easiest position to replace, but you can't replace that speed. I mean, he's got, superstar elite top 3 wide receiver speed. So I look at it like, unfortunately, you got to kind of play the NFL business game with Jameson, and you give him the 5th-year option. It's still great money, and you have him under control for 2025 and 2026. And then you see what he brings to the table. You may go down the road like T. Higgins. You give him 1 year on a franchise tag, and then you have him for the next 3 years. And then you could potentially, in this year's draft or next year's, get a wide receiver. Look, it's tough, because I do think he's going to emerge and be a player that a lot of people will respect. Touchdowns, speed, explosiveness. But how many $30 million wide receivers can one team have when it's a position that you can find in the draft? Relatively speaking, you're not going to get the same level of speed, but you can get a tall, physical, and speedy wide receiver, relatively speaking, in the draft. And based on how the league is going, it's very hard for a lot of teams, because look at the Bengals. They got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but they're having a hard time finding the funds to pay the NFL sack leader. Well, given that Aiden Hutchinson is going to make $40 million a year or more, and given that Kirby Joseph's going to make $20 million or more, there's only so many dollars to go around. I think that you clearly know that Jahmyr Gibbs is the apple of Brad Holmes' eye. He's not going to just let Jahmyr Gibbs walk. I feel like he'll get another. I think the odds are pretty good that Jahmyr will get a nice contract in Detroit. And so you got to start saying, who's the odd man out? Most likely, you're starting to look at Jameson Williams as one of those targets. But hey, it's up to Jameson Williams. His job is to make sure to make it difficult on the Lions, and his job is to go out there and ball, which I think he will, to earn a hefty contract. So it's going to be an interesting dilemma for Jameson Williams. But there's some wide receivers in this draft that you could target that are big-bodied and speedy as well. But I'm of the opinion that if Jameson, my opinion is, if he balls out and he's a guy that can get up there over 1,200 yards and over 10 touchdowns, might be worth it to give him a similar contract to Amon-Ra and say, hey, look, you want to be on a good team, take this 30, 31 million. But if you break the bank, there's going to be some situations where maybe you're not on as good a team. So maybe, I don't typically advocate for hometown deals, but maybe Jameson will take one, relatively speaking, if it's clear that he's not the number one, because right now Amon-Ra's the number one. So we'll see, but it's a unique dilemma, because if this year comes up and he blows out and he's like just dominating and gets like 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, now you're talking in the neighborhood of, being one of the highest paid wide receivers, and that's looking at north of 120 million. And that's that's a big, interesting situation for the Lions to be in.
Muted, Boone.
Sorry, my mic just
Hit
keeps
that
going in
unmute
and out.
button.
My mic just keeps going in and out over here. It keeps muting me on the stream. It's unbelievable. You brought up a good point though, Doc. Like, I mean, T. Higgins kind of just went through it to where T. Higgins could be a number 1, and he takes wide receiver 2 money to stay in Cincy to go win a Super Bowl. Talking contracts though, Doc. One thing I think is really interesting, I want to get where your thoughts are on it, is the Aiden Hutchinson and the Kirby deals, because we haven't really seen them get done yet, but we did see last year these deals get done around the draft. You know, Jared Goff, who was it? Panay Sewell, Amon-Ra. All 3 of those guys get done around the week of the draft. The difference between, in my opinion, to this year is there's been a lot of edge rushers that have signed pre-draft already. And last year, Brad was kind of the first GM in when it comes to signing players at certain positions. Do you think these 2 deals are going to get done pretty soon, or do you think that the agents are going to look at it and say, hey, let's just keep waiting until more deals get done in the safety room, in the edge room, and we can get a higher price? How do you think that'll work out for the Lions and those 2 players?
Yeah, no, relatively speaking, I don't think Trey Hendrickson, because of his, north of 30 age, his productivity is great. I don't think he's going to, reset the market. Antoine Winfield, I believe, sets the market with the Bucs. I think at little over 21 million a year. So I think it's relatively set. For Aiden, it may be one of those situations where there's a little bit more negotiations based on what they want to give him and what they feel and what Aiden wants to do. But I feel like, relatively speaking, that these deals could, there have been deals that have gone into training camp. I do think that with Aiden, you might just want to wait until you see what he does in some of the offseason workouts before you levy a big contract on him. Kirby Joseph, I probably would expect that you're going to see that deal pretty much sealed up here and probably in the next 4 weeks or so. There would be no reason. I mean, I don't think he's going to, want to reset the market so much. I think he's probably going to be in the neighborhood of $22, $23 million annually, and just going to be on terms and years and all that good stuff, guaranteed money. But you just see how much fun he's having chasing deers and all the fun stuff he does online in the community. So it's a guy that I think will have no problem securing a hefty deal. Aiden's may be more complicated because of the injury and because I do think Aiden's camp is going to want to definitely set the market for what he can bring to the table. But it's delicate with guaranteed money, and a lot of people are looking at the starting point of at least 4 years, 160 million, a lot of at least over 125 million guaranteed. It's a lot. Do you give that 5th year, 6th year? How long do you want to give Aiden Hutchinson? Do you want to make him the highest paid right off jump, or do you want to have him be similar to Myles Garrett? And you look at it and you say, well, relatively speaking, you typically pay guys based on their potential. I would see no issue with Aiden having the ability to go out there and be like Max Crosby, be like Myles Garrett, and produce at a very, very high level. But you still got to see him out there on the football field. So I would think Kirby's is first, and Aiden's going to be probably maybe it could happen by the draft, but I would project maybe more towards the start of training camp where everything gets ironed out.
And with those signings, Doc, obviously they're going to be, extensions. It's going to be worth a lot of money. Is there anybody, and I know the draft is yet to come, and it's going to shake how things kind of project into training camp. Is there anybody that you think could be kind of like on the surprising cut watch for the Detroit Lions right now that have been here that fans love, or at least think will be here, that because of the money and with this draft class might not be with the team come week 1?
No, that's very good. You look at, the makeup of the roster indicates that, they've kind of have done that already with Kyle Pecco not being here. John Kaminsky retired. I would have figured if he played that his elevated age. I think the player that maybe you want to see about is DJ Reader. You want to see, he had a good year, but not to the level, and he's coming off of injury. I do think that if they go out and get an all-world defensive tackle, you might look to get younger at that spot. But he's so stout against the run. He still brings you a lot of good, really solid talent across the board and very veteran leadership. I thought that he had an okay year, but still a little bit down from the days that he had in his prime. But, you look at the team and you look at the makeup offensively. One guy that if you start to look at his numbers and what he brings to the table, if he doesn't have a good camp, Graham Glasgow did not have a good year. I understand Dan Campbell loves his versatility, but if he goes out there and is not as productive in camp, there's a chance that he does not retain. When you look at it, you know for sure that the rookie that they're going to draft is going to compete. Hopefully, maybe they get one in the first or second round that can compete with Graham Glasgow. But Mahogany's right there on his tail, chasing him for playing time. And you realize, all right, he had a year in which it puts him on notice that you got to produce at a high level. But, you look at it and you say probably the depth-wise, players along the offensive line that haven't produced, like a Colby Sorsdahl, he's got to show something this year in regards to kind of being versatile and being able to do some things. So there's some players that are going to need some big camps because they've been a little bit quiet. And I guess I'll throw it out there to please some of the people listening. If Broderick Martin doesn't step it up, if he doesn't show what he needs to show, the Lions will cut him. Like, they recognize that there's when you have to put defensive tackle on every needs list and you start bringing in guys like Josiah Stewart and guys like Kenneth Grant to do the job, you got to kind of figure that, hey, that's an also indication that the NFL, not for long, they're looking to replace you. They're looking for competition. And they went out in free agency and got Roy Lopez. They didn't say, Broderick Martin, you're the next man up. And whenever your boss, whenever Brad Holmes comes out and the first thing that he's got to say is we need Broderick to be more consistent, that's not good in 3 years into your career. He battled injuries, but when the big bosses say, hey, we notice you can bring flashes for a minute here, but then the next flash is not as good, that's not a good thing at the NFL level. They need consistency. And when they use that word, that means they see flashes, but they don't see it enough. And if they don't see it enough, he'll be gone.
Yeah, Doc, I saw, I think it was Adam Schefter said that he expects the Eagles to be probably one of the more aggressive teams in terms of making trades, wanting to move up in the first round. Like, from what he's hearing, the Eagles, he expects to be very aggressive. And it kind of made me reflect back. I mean, every draft, the Lions seem to be super aggressive. I mean, last year, Brad traded up. He's traded up for Jameson. He's shown the ability to go up and get guys, not just in the first, but trading up for other players. I think Broderick, actually, speaking of him, was a trade up. When you look at just the first round, and you can even bring up past the first round, with Adam bringing up the Eagles, I think he's maybe forgetting how aggressive Brad has been. How aggressive do you think Brad will be and kind of approach this draft, not just the first round, but throughout the entirety of it, going and getting his guys?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that if the Lions find a guy that fits, they trade up for him. Traded up for Broderick Martin, traded up for, I believe you look at it and you say, hey, moving up to get a cornerback, that's pretty much not all that typical for this regime. So they have no problem when they identify somebody that they feel like fits. And I think they would do it in the first round for an edge rusher if they feel like, and I go back and forth, but I feel like edge is such a key position. And you have to know that, okay, Marcus Davenport slotted in, but he's not reliable just yet. You can't just pin your hopes on Marcus Davenport. So I would think that there's a guy that they had to say, okay, this could fit and work across from Aiden and could be a developmental player. But there could also be a player like a Gray Zabel or an offensive lineman that they feel, hey, could be the future, a nice swing guard tackle that can do a lot of different things. And you hear that the Lions definitely are going to get back to work in the trenches. Yeah, Brett Holmes is not afraid to maneuver the draft. I do think that this draft provides opportunities for them to move up and down. Maybe down is a better strategy in regards to getting more assets in this year's draft because of the fact that a first-round pick, you got to give them that fifth-year option. And with a team that has so many contracts coming up, if you can get an extra pick in the third round, fourth round, or something next year, then you go ahead and do it. But yeah, no, Brett Holmes is not somebody that's just going to sit back. That makes it tough. It's fun when you're in that room and you got your paperwork ready. You got all the draft prospects lined up on your screens. And all of a sudden, Brad Holmes, like there was, last year, Brad was all over the place, but it was, it makes it fun because you know that if the Lions have a player that they want, they're going to get them. And I think you always vote for aggression in a lot of ways in sports. And unfortunately, it's not that way for free agency, but in the draft, whole different ball game. That's the spot where guys like Howie Roseman and Brad Holmes. And if you look at the trades that he's made, very rarely is he taking the very far worst end of it in regards to value. They will sacrifice a little bit of value to get guys, but you got to swing a little bit better than trading up for Broderick Martin as well. And Giovani Manu. Projects don't typically, make it so that fans are a little bit excited. I think that's one of the goals, hopefully, that you and I talked about, Jeff, is that no projects this year. If you're going to trade up for a guy that's going to step out day one and compete super hard with one of the starters to get out there and start. So I'm excited for the draft. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be very fun to see how Brad Holmes gets down and restocks his team.
Hey, stay on that topic real quick, Doc, because this is something that we had a conversation yesterday. I kind of brought it to the boys, and there was a little heated debate. It wasn't really a heated debate. We actually ended up agreeing on the whole situation, but like a shocking move from Brad Holmes. We talked about yesterday, and it was really Russell who kind of talked about it on the heavyweights, but that, hey, if all the edge rushers are off the board, all the offensive linemen are off the board, and you're sitting there and your BPA is like a Luther Burden, or it's one of these wide receivers, or it's a random position. We've seen Brad coach Amir Gibbs. We've seen him take a linebacker in the top 20. Like, he is not afraid to make those moves. What do you think one like bold move and like a little bit of a shocking move that Brad Holmes would make? What do you think one move like that would be for him in this draft class?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the thing that I asked Jeff. I thought I didn't hear you guys' debate. I can't wait to get after this interview, check out what you guys were yelling and screaming about yesterday. But I could see the debate. That was the headline of our podcast was, could Brad Holmes make a shocking trade or shocking move in regards to restocking this team in the first round? Because everybody thinks it's edge or offensive line. What would be shocking? Well, I think the shocking move would be if you traded a, pick for an asset or an established player. I think that would be shocking. Maybe you package a first round pick and you get that Trey Hendrickson move and you make it happen on draft day. That would be shocking. That door is still slightly open, even though it's relatively speaking, realistically closed, but that would be shocking, is to go out there and get a proven player for draft picks. I think, all the other moves that could be made. Look, you can make an argument for. I mean, I would be shocked if it was for I think the shocking move, I think relatively speaking, realistically, that I think many people are not expecting and kind of have dismissed, and Jeff and I talked about it, is if James Pierce is there and they take him, I think that would be pretty surprising, because by all accounts, by all the people that talk about him, that he doesn't kind of fit the narrative of what the Lions want. They kind of believe that, he's a player with some question marks and is a guy that may not be the exact best fit in the locker room, but he's got some high upside. So could the Lions take a risk on a guy that doesn't check every single personality box? That would be a little bit surprising. But, I think that relatively speaking, the surprise move would be if they went with an offensive skill position. If they did go with wide receiver, I would not be surprised. I mean, I'm open to it. I've talked about it at Lions on SI, that Brad Holmes, it's clear when he says it, he's not lying. Brad Holmes says we are not a needs-based team. So let's just hope that the 28th best player, that hopefully it's not a wide receiver. I'm hoping that they find, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, because it's a big area of need. I'm hoping, and I did a story where I predicted each position that they would take with each round. And I feel like it should go, in my opinion, should go edge rusher, probably offensive line, then D tackle would be the best ideal fit. But yeah, that'd be a lot of surprising moves, especially maybe they move up and get one of the bigger name edge rushers that nobody's talking about. So maybe you move up and you get into the top 10 if you just find the absolute stud. But a lot of moves have to be made in front of you to have some guys drop that would be intriguing. I just hope they don't do it for, a player that is a little bit more question mark, like Shamar Stewart, who just was productive, but not productive enough to the level where you would say, oh, he's a slam dunk. So we'll see. I can't wait to see. It's going to be fun too, to see if they do move up, how far would they get into the top 15, top 14? Where would they go up to get a guy? Because there's some good edge rushers in that 12 to 18 mix.
Doc, unfortunately, at that last part there, you kind of answered the question I was going to ask, but I'm going to make you expand on that thought a little bit more. And it's because it's a very polarizing pick on the show and in the chat. When you look at Shamar Stewart, I'm on the camp of, if this was a second-round pick, I'd be all for it. But in the first round with the edge rushers available, again, context with the board needs to be there. If there's literally nobody else there in the first round, they take Shamar Stewart at 28. I'll have to eat shit and just hope that I'm proven wrong. But where do you stand on Shamar Stewart as far as in the first round for the Lions?
No, good question. He's an intriguing prospect. You like his size. You like what he can bring to the table in regards to pass rush, but he's got to be consistent. Like, you got to deliver. And there are a little bit more question marks regarding his ability to get home to the quarterback and finish. So you kind of get the early Levi Onwuzurike label, kind of where you like what he can do, the potential, but you just haven't seen him close at the level of other guys, like a Donovan Ezeriku or others as well, that can get after the quarterback and finish. So I'm excited to see, the mix of guys that are there. I feel like the Lions probably would be more intrigued with Nick Scourton a little bit more and Donovan, based on the productivity that they've had. But Shamar Stewart's intriguing. I do think that, coaches, and the one thing that's for me, because I have not met him yet, not talking to Casey Rogers, you wonder, is he a player that could fit what Casey Rogers would want to mold? So I'm intrigued. I'm fascinated to see what he could bring to the table. I'm of the opinion that if he were to be drafted by Detroit, I think with the leadership that the Lions have with Marcus Davenport, Aiden Hutchinson, and, Levi and the players along the defensive line with the coaching staff, I feel like they could make it work. But you're right. There's more question marks. And you want to have more of a sure thing. And especially, I think the prevailing thought among the fans is you want an edge rusher that you think could compete at the highest level to dethrone Marcus Davenport. And Shamar Stewart might be a guy that might take a little bit longer. And that's okay, as long as you get there by the third or fourth quarter of the season. But at the same token, that, in the absence of buzz and free agency, we all want a guy that's very agile, that has shown some things on film that can do the job. And unfortunately, Shamar Stewart hasn't done enough to at least wow the fans over at this point.
Well, Doc, a player that I'm excited to see if the Lions can continue to mold and if this player can keep stepping up is Giovani Manu. I want to ask you about the Giovani Manu stock and where you think it's going, because Dan already hinted at him playing guard. You're seeing him work out with Taylor Decker, left tackle. So maybe he can play more than just guard, Doc, but where are you at now in your confidence level in the Giovani Manu stock as we head into the season?
Yeah, fun topic to talk about, right? Stock watch. Hopefully today's news helped everybody out that's in that particular market. Definitely, I peeked at it today. I was like, "Ooh, that's a little bit better than what's happened in the first couple weeks of the month of first couple end of March and early April." So thank goodness for today. But word wise, don't do too much stock watching outside of sports. But with Giovani Manu, let's look at it like this. I would say that he's plateaued. Like, you can't say that his stock is rising. He's a developmental raw prospect who played in Canada. And his first year was a year in which he was basically redshirted and learned fundamentals and had to learn the game and learn how to handle these massive defensive linemen. So I do think he'll get more of an opportunity, but he's got a long way to go in terms of anchoring, setting, his footwork, hand placement, consistency. You're not going to put him at guard. He's a big, I think it's funny. You could do it and rotate him in and learn, and for the cross training and versatility and all that fun stuff, but you don't typically see guards of that size for the majority of their career. But, you would project, ideally, in the ideal world, year 2, more development, more progress, more strength, being able to handle what he needs to do. Then you hope in a couple years, maybe in 2026, 27, he's the right tackle of the future if Penei Sewell moves to the left side. So I'm excited for what he can bring to the table, but you can't say his stock is down because he's got the physical size and he just really is the intangibles are just jump off the chart. But now the toughest part is you got to learn the NFL game, and you can't just learn it in 1 year. And I do think he'll come back stronger. He'll come back with a lot more confidence. And I love the fact that we're seeing videos. I love when teammates work out together at the same offensive line camp. It's great to see. It's fun. It's great to see the workouts. So I'm excited for the opportunity for Manu to to get out there and develop this year. It'll be fun to see the reports, where he plays and how he matches up. But right now, stock neutral. You don't buy the stock, you don't sell the stock. You just if you have belief in Manu, hold on to it. There's opportunities for him to make some more noise in 2025.
Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.